We're not putting up with that stuff. We want people to understand that we love the Constitution, we love our country, and we're not screwing around. Alright, here we go. Generally, the militia shall be organized, equipped, and disciplined as provided by law. Now let's get into that. The single section is substituted for all of this relating to the militia in the present 1908 Constitution. Remember I told you about empowering? The existing article ties the legislature down to an outmoded concept of what the militia should be. You believe that? Boy, our forefathers would be rolling over in their grave. Details as to organizing, equipping, and disciplining the militia are left to the legislative enactment in the interest of the flexibility and future requirements. Ah, does that mean future requirements, if it got nasty and down and dirty, we would have our militia come back? Sounds good to me. I could go for that. The bottom line is the people that know what's going around are not screwing around. They join the militia. Okay? Alright, now Article 10. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Article 9. Let's pull this out. The militia, organization and discipline. The legislature shall provide by law for organizing and disciplining the militia in such manner as they shall deem expedient, not incompatible with the Constitution and the laws of the United States. But they're not doing it, right? The legislature shall provide for efficient discipline of the officers, commissioned and non-commissioned, and the musicians and/or may provide by law for the organization and discipline of the volunteer companies. Volunteer companies. Notice that. Volunteer companies, huh? Officers of the militia shall be elected or appointed in such manner as the legislature shall from time to time direct and shall be commissioned by the governor. The governor shall have the power to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the state, to suppress insurrections and repel invasions. That's what our forefathers had in mind when they had a militia. Now, if they're going to invade us, they're going to change our money, they're going to shut down our Constitution. That's why the militia needs to be organized. That's why you need to be down there talking to a militia. That's why you need to be joining the militia. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what color, national origin, ethnic background you come from. You need to be down to the militia, and you need to be talking to them folks about this is the United States of America, and I will protect it and its constitutional form of government. And by doing that, if we do it in sufficient numbers, most probably what will happen is the New World Order scammers will realize, the people woke up, we screwed up. We'll have to wait another 300 years to try and pull it again. And let's hope that's what happens. If that isn't what happens, then the militia will defend the Republic, just like what our forefathers intended. And we will defend the Republic, as we always do, with vigor. And we will have a government by Constitution. That American flag will be on that pole out there, and anybody that wants to try something different, hey, knock yourself out. But plan on a very severe battle, because we will never give up the United States of America, its constitutional government, or our American flag, or our American heritage. So this idea that you're going to wear us out, tie us down, otherwise skew us around is nothing but a lot of hoodoo. It ain't going to happen in your lifetime. As a matter of fact, your lifetime may not be that long either. Because we try traitors in this country. And the bottom line is the penalty for treason is death. And it's not our purpose to threaten or coerce or otherwise intimidate any person, but we want you to understand that this is the United States of America. This is a country governed by constitutional law, that constitutional law prescribes penalties for criminal acts, and that those criminal acts can be punished by lawful means. We're asking all persons that are involved in all walks of government or any areas of the law to please, 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 let's get back to the Constitution and quit screwing around. Let's just get back to what's supposed to be done and quit screwing around. Pull back your Federalist Papers and let's start reading. You're going to find out everything that's in this book is directly applicable today. We need to do it over. We need to get back to a gold and silver standard. We need to get back to a serious means of trade expedience that's going to hold the standards of our country even. We won't have this inflation. We won't have this ridiculous market situation. We're asking you, please, before God, we're asking you. We want our Constitution. We want it back. We want all of the American principles that we stand for, that our brave soldiers died for. And we're asking you to please quit screwing around. Let's get down to brass tacks. You've been feeding the pablum to the babies too long. Believe me, we're way ahead of you. You may not think so, but I'm here to tell you, we're way ahead of you. You're going to wake up someday and you're going to be shocked. We're going to be all standing out there smiling. Because you're going to be the one that's asleep, not us. We know what we're talking about. We're not fooling around. We want you to honor our Constitution. God bless America. We want you to keep us safe. We want to be into the 21st century stronger than we were in the 17th century. We're not fooling around, so please. Now we can go into this book, and this book clearly establishes they never wanted to have a militia or a standing army. They only trusted. You listen to some of these arguments in here. Okay? But it is said that the laws of the Union are to be the supreme law of the land. What inference can be drawn from this? Or what would they amount to if they were not to be supreme? It is evident they would amount to nothing. A law, by the very meaning of the term, includes supremacy. It is the rule which those to whom it is prescribed are bound to observe. This results from every political association. If individuals enter into a state of society, of laws of that society must be the supreme regulator of their conduct. If a number of political societies enter into a larger political society, the laws which the latter may enact pursuant to the powers entrusted to it by its constitution must necessarily be supreme over those societies and the individuals of whom they are composed of. It would otherwise be a mere treaty dependent on good faith of the parties, and not a government, which is only another word for a political power and supremacy. But it will not follow from this doctrine that acts of larger society, which are not pursuant to its constitutional powers, but which are invasions of the residuary authorizes of the smaller societies, will become the supreme law of the land. These will be merely acts of usurpation, which is kind of what's going on, and will deserve to be treated as such. Hence we perceive that the clause which declares the supremacy of the laws of the Union, like the one we have just before considered, only declares a truth which flows immediately and necessarily from the institution of the federal government. It will not, I presume, have escaped observation that it expressly confines the supremacy to laws made pursuant to the Constitution, which I mention merely as an instance of caution in the convention, since the limitation would have been to be understood through, though it had not been expressed. Though a law, therefore, for laying a tax for a use of the United States would be supreme in its nature, and could not legally be opposed or controlled, yet a law for abrogating and preventing the collection of a tax laid by the authority of the state, unless upon imports and exports, would not be the supreme law of the land, but an usurpation of power not granted by the Constitution. As far as an improper accumulation of taxes on the same object might tend to render the collection difficult or precarious, this would be a mutual inconvenience, not arising from the superiority or defect of the power. Now we want to get into some serious arguments here. We want to go to page 108. About the middle of the page. Except as to the rule of apportionment, the United States have indefinite discretion to make requisitions for men and money. That means they can ask. But they have no authority to raise either by regulations extending to the individual citizens of America. That's why we don't have a Title 26 that applies to you. The consequences of this is that, though in theory their resolution concerning those objects are laws constitutionally binding on the members of the Union, yet in practice they are mere recommendations which the states observe or disregard at their option. This is the intent of the framers. Cohen versus Virginia, 6/2/1821 says this is the exact intent. Is it pretty hard for you to understand what their intent was? They never intended to have an internal revenue. Ever. They hated people that operated like that operated a tyranny against the people. Alright, let's get on with this. Wise politicians will be cautious about fettering the government with restrictions that cannot be observed, because they know that every breach of the fundamental laws, though dictated by necessity, impairs that sacred reverence, which ought to